When you think of autistic characters in media, who do you think of? Some may say Sheldon Cooper. Others may draw blanks or bring up shows such as Community, Atypical, and The Good Doctor. But there's also characters who may feel heavily written or implied to be autistic, or have a character arc that autistic people relate to. My name is Star, and I am autistic, and one of my biggest special interests is autism and pop culture, and I often like to merge my interests. So today for my first video, I'd like to go into what I consider to be autistic coding, as well as some examples. I will definitely be doing more parts of this with more characters I see as autistic because it's personally fun to me to investigate a character and their story and why I've come to that conclusion. This video is scripted and I have intended it to be a video essay, so feel free to put this up in the background while you're doing other things. Now, first I will explain what autistic coding means. Autistic coding means when a character is written or interpreted by another as autistic, but not explicitly stated to be autistic. For example, the character I mentioned earlier, Sheldon Cooper. Many people think he is autistic, but he has never been confirmed to be as such, and I think this may due to backlash if he was confirmed because of two reasons. One, Jim Parsons, his actor, is not autistic. One thing that people in the autistic community advocate for is for autistic characters to be played by autistic actors, and this may partially be due to the Sia music controversy. If you haven't heard about that atrocious film, I'm sure somebody who's actually seen the movie could tell you why that movie is problematic. But back to my main point. The other reason I could see people having a problem with Sheldon being explicitly autistic is because often Sheldon isn't a good person and it may come off as bad representation. With autistic characters in media, we do have some stinkers, as well as some of the characters around them being awful towards these characters. I've heard people talk about Atypical and The Good Doctor and how bad their representation is. And as someone who has not seen either series, but I did see people mocking a meltdown scene in The Good Doctor, I will be skimming past those characters to talk about characters I personally see as autistic and their story as such. Elsa from Frozen. If you are like me and spent your life as a woman with undiagnosed autism for years, you will fully sympathize with Elsa. While not explicitly autistic, her story and mannerisms read autistic to me in my own experiences. Let's start with the obvious. Elsa has a talent that many other people do not have. They may fear or enjoy this talent, and Elsa feels like she must conceal it to be considered normal. When overstimulated and overwhelmed, Elsa releases all her emotions in a powerful yet sometimes violent meltdown. Her story about being herself and not giving into the fear that she had of hurting people and realizing what she could create has always been so special to me and is why I love Frozen so much. I also see Anna as ADHD, a term that means an autistic person who also has ADHD, similar to myself, but as this video is exclusively talking about autistic coded characters, I will be focusing on Elsa. The next character I want to talk about is not one, but two characters from a show that means the world to me. Dipper and Mabel Pines from Gravity Falls. Autism is a spectrum, and you can be incredibly introverted and knowledgeable and awkward like Dipper, or you could be extroverted, excited, and seen as too much by your peers like Mabel. Both siblings offer a glance into the very broad autism spectrum, as well as Mabel potentially also having ADHD. I'm keeping this section brief because it's been a while since I watched the show in full. No two autistic people are ever the same, so no two autistic people experience the same things as someone else. One thing that I will mention that fits the twins perfectly is the ability to socialize with people older than them more than the people closer to their own age. Dipper and Mabel often get bullied by Pacific Northwest in the beginning of the series, but are able to go out and talk to the adults of the town a lot easier. Autistic people, such as myself for example, may have unspoken rules for survival in this neurotypical supportive world. For me, I find it hard to interact with people my own age because my interests may not be things that people my age should like. Adults have a usually more better time understanding and are a lot nicer, especially if they have children of their own. Now to segue into my next character from my favorite cartoon of all time, Star Butterfly from Star vs. the Forces of Evil. Now from the get-go, she's very much heavily implied to have ADHD, but her whole story of fitting into an unknown world resonated a lot with me when it comes to autism. Star is hyperactive, likes to chew on things, flaps her hands when excited, misunderstands social cue, and so much more. She even has what can be seen as a meltdown in the Season 2 episode Bon Bon the Birthday Clown, when her negativity towards Jackie Lynn Thomas leads her to be tripping up on her skateboard. Another big factor in Star being heavily autistic coded is how different she is to people. Not just on Earth, which is what the excuse non-autistic will say when you bring up Star potentially being autistic, but how she's also incredibly different from people on her own planet as well. There's a whole episode on how she's so different from former Mumin queens that ends up the start of the Muni throne being completely dethroned. There's probably a lot more, but I'll leave you with this. Star has meant so much to me since the show premiered. We hardly, if ever, see an autistic character who is extroverted and not smart when it comes to fictional characters, as you will see by these next two entries. Not every autistic person is a savant, which means someone who excels in a specific niche and is super smart. That can sometimes be a heavy stereotype and a burden for autistic people to try to live up to, because non-autistic people can often believe a streamlined example of what autism is. It is one of the reasons I doubted myself on being autistic for a long time, because I don't have one specific niche that I'm interested in, and I'm completely extroverted around my close friends with whom I can unmask around. Now, on to the next representation, who is very well known by the community, so I'm not going to go super into depth on her. Peridot from Steven Universe. When we first meet Peridot, she's stoic, mean, and a villain. She wasn't understanding on why Steven and the Gems wanted to protect the Earth so much. After she is captured, she is very nervous and apprehensive. She later gets her sights set on a fictional TV show called Camp Pining Heart and becomes what we like to call hyperfixated. She makes charts and obsesses over it, which is the true autism experience. Later on, she also gains a tablet, and if you're like me, autistic people love their tablets. I'm actually making this video on mine until I get my computer. Our second to last character is Twilight Sparkle from My Little Pony: Friendship is Magic. When we first meet her, she is introverted, sometimes blunt and rude, and can be interested in one thing: learning all that she can. On meeting her friends, she's still sometimes blunt to them, but it's only when she realizes that friendship is magic does she become heavily interested in being social with people. I see her special interests as general knowledge, which is why she ended up becoming a teacher. Twilight has other autistic traits, such as wanting to follow her routine and checklist, having meltdowns when she doesn't understand something, stimming when she's happy, and overall just being such a wonderful example of autistic women. Allegedly, Lauren Foss, who developed this series, has said that she wanted Twilight to be explicitly autistic, but there's no such evidence of these claims, but it does make a lot of sense. The last character I want to talk about is Lynette from Genshin Impact. Genshin Impact is one of my favorite games due to the interesting characters and rich story. So it was an absolute treat to see Lynette come out in about August of last year. She is introverted, loves cakes and cats, and will often pretend to be a robot to avoid social interaction. Surprise! There are other characters in Genshin that I also see as autistic, such as Kokomi, Albedo, and Alhaitham, so let me know if I should make a part 2 to this. Lynette's story is that she is an assistant to her twin brother Linny. She wears a blank mask on her face, which is a term when an autistic person attempts to mask their true personality, so they seem blank-faced with no emotions. In this modern era of more and more people realizing they've been autistic all along, we've seen an increase of representation in media, such as Twyla and the new Monster High show, so I have faith that we will see good representation more often. For people like me, these characters and their stories matter. We deserve to be included in these adventures that fictional characters go on. Thank you all so much for watching. I said on my community tab my first video was going to be about Happy Feet, but I wanted to make a video about autistic coding first since the movie will be talking about autistic coding in general. So I wanted a video for people to go back to if they didn't know what that means. Please make sure to follow my Instagram where I post memes and edits as well as interacting with my community. Please make sure to like, comment, and subscribe and hit the bell to be really up to date. Bye!